everyone, it's Rebecca from the Glitch Stitchery. I'm here today with something a little bit different. I just wanted to chat about another one of my tertiary hobbies because I have quite a few. And let me just make sure I'm in frame. Yes, I am. All right. So, one of the hobbies I tend to come back to a lot, even if I don't necessarily dedicate as much time to it as I do other hobbies, is watercolors. I've been coming back to it off and on since probably middle school, so it's been a while. And more recently, I guess because of the fact that it's, oh, let me take those out of the water. Well, apparently it is Worldwide Watercolor Month. So while I was trying to find things to do when it was too hot to be spinning yarn, I was browsing on YouTube and Instagram, and I kept finding watercolor videos. Now, another thing that you might not realize is that spinning, for me at least, does not require much mental energy. I'm not really looking at what I'm doing for the most part when I'm spinning. Once I get into a rhythm, it's more just hand motion, and then I'm doing something else at the same time, like watching a movie or listening to music or something. So, seeing all this watercolor content, I ended up saving all of it, and then when I was spinning, I watched tutorial after tutorial after tutorial, and it's just something for me to do. So right now I'm kind of obsessed. And I already had a lot of stuff, and now I have more stuff. And I just wanted to kind of chat about some things I got recently, what I like, what I don't like, and yeah, it's just basically that. So what kicked all of this off is I was in Target and I found this set. So I love the wooden box. That's really the only reason I bought it. And I have been using it a fair amount. As you can see, I've gone through quite a lot of the pink. These are just, you know, child grade watercolors. The brushes are not amazing, and they stained. I do wash these. It's not like I just put them back in the palette. They're not amazing, but they do have some spring back, which I like. Colors, let's see, do I have my charts in here? Probably not. Probably left that one in the living room, because what's been happening is when it gets too hot to spin yarn, I move to the living room in front of the air conditioner and I paint. Okay, no, I don't have the chart out here for this one, but I did chart up all the colors. Most of them are just, you know, very kind of chalky, is that the word? They're not as translucent as you would hope, and some of them have kind of like a gritty finish. They're not amazing, but they are very portable, and they were relative. I mean, 20 bucks actually isn't that cheap for this, but oh man, what do they have for good points? They were there, and I like them. I like the color palette quite a bit. I like this range, and I like these two blues quite a bit. So yeah, they were fun anyways. So I bought this, and that just kind of kicked off an entire spiral of watercolor stuff. So I'm just gonna go through some of it. And in addition to watercolor stuff, it's now become watercolor and gouache stuff. Anyway, I've had this little notebook in my stash for a while, but I had never used it, so I started experimenting with it. This is from the Target colors. And then when I went back to Target, I bought the Target gouache, which was terrible because it was pretty much entirely translucent. I think I have a picture for that. Yep, I swatched it out here. The R.LUMR gouache, don't buy it, it's not worth it. And then I went to Michael's, and they had the Artist Loft gouache on clearance for $5 for a, how many was that, 24, I think? And I can't remember if I don't think I ended up swatching the whole set, but I swatched the colors I cared about here. And they are reasonably opaque, which was nice. They have that texture I wanted. So these are fun to work with. Now, when I went back in my stash to see what I actually owned for watercolors, I had an older set of, is this in frame? Yes. An older set of Winsor & Newton Cotman 12 half pan Skechers set. It's a bit of a mouthful. Now the newer sets have different colors, which is why I ended up crossing stuff off. But the older set was very warm heavy. And I feel like the ultramarine was really weak. But it's just very warm heavy. That came in this set. Now I've taken them all out and cleaned up the palette because I've had this palette for years and it was quite messy. Not just because of me, but also because when my brother asked to borrow watercolors for landscape painting, these are the ones I lent him. Let me get all these out. So I took them out of the palette and I cleaned them up. And while there are some of these colors I really like, I don't like all of them. And I have another swatch for this. So this is the limited palette for the R.LUMR Gouache that I've decided I like. And then this is the Winsor & Newton full swatch test. So you can see how weak the ultramarine is. The intense blue is pretty great, and I like the crimson. I hate Viridian with, I don't know why, I just really hate Viridian. I've always hated Viridian. I like all three yellows though, those are all nice. So I've been thinking, and the reason I took them out of there is I might swap in some other colors to fill in the holes of what I think are missing. So these are the gouache from R.LUMR that I've been using. And I've already like run through half the tubes because you use a lot of gouache and it's just really cheap gouache. Oops. So, I mean, they're not amazing, but they're a lot better than the Target ones. So yeah, I've just been doing swatching and swatching and swatching. And then I was going back through my stash and I had this Gonzai set. So I swatched that out again. I haven't used this in forever. I forgot how opaque these were. These were actually really fun. So I swatched that out. They dry with some really interesting textures. So if you're looking for like watercolors, I don't recommend these. But they are really fun to use wet on wet and see how they dry. Like you don't have to use salt or anything. They do really cool things. So there's those. And I apologize if I hit the camera and it shakes a little bit. This is just a really large notebook. This is the Kanzen mixed media. And I just like using it for testing things as well as for stuff like this, which is more what I'm known for, I guess. Before I really got into spinning, this is basically all I did all day. And I did a lot of them. So there is that. But I've mostly been using this for swatching out different colors. And I have some different sets coming. So I have it set up for me to swatch those so I can compare them. I ordered the Van Gogh. Everyone keeps pronouncing Van Gogh a different way. I don't actually know which one is correct, now that I think about it. I will continue to say Van Gogh. Anyway, I ordered the Van Gogh watercolor half pan set, and it's like a set that comes with 3 bonus pans, so it's 15 colors. And I'm hoping that between these colors and the Winsor & Newton Cotman ones, I can put together a palette I actually like, hopefully. I'm really looking forward to the Quinn Rose, because that is a color that I really like. There's also a Payne's Gray in there, which is pretty nice. I remember liking that one in the past. Like I said, this is a hobby that like I drift in and out of all the time. I come back to watercolors at least twice a year and I'll be like, oh, are my watercolors still good? And I don't know what happened between this time and the last time, but all my tubes are missing. So I had to buy all new tubes. Those are on the way too. But I did get some stuff today that we can look at. So yeah, I've just been playing around, testing out the gouache, and just really, they're not technically interesting ways, but they are informative, which is what I needed. So my ways of swatching are not necessarily very clinical. So yeah, just some more of these. These are really bright colors from that Target set, so I know these are gonna die. They're not gonna stay this bright. I don't remember what ones I used for this one. I need to cut it in half though, because I was gonna use the other half of the paper for something else. When I have leftover paint on my pan, I do stuff like that. Gouache test. Kuretake Gansai Tombi set test. Not done. I'm gonna go over this with gouache. Using up leftover paint. Using up leftover paint. The ones that don't have much going on and they're just using up leftover paint will sometimes end up being the background for a different piece in the future. So that might happen. Alright, so I got 4 new things in the mail today. Oh, I didn't mention these. These are the Derwent Inktense colored pencils. I do have a full set of these, but I also have just a few loose ones. And then there's also a Faber-Castell Aquarelle in here. And where is it? Somewhere around here I have a water-soluble normal pencil too. I don't know where it is. Anyway, I like using these for the sketching part because then they just blend out when I paint over it. So there's that. I have all sorts of little palettes all over the place right now. Okay, so the 4 things I got are these. Make sure I'm in frame. Alright, so this is the Himi gouache set, and it's so heavy. I was not expecting it to be this heavy. So when I picked up my box outside, I was like, holy crap. So there's that. I got a set of 50 blank watercolor postcards. I like this size for testing, so they're probably not actually going to be sent as postcards. I'm probably mostly going to do swatch tests and stuff on them. And I also got a little tiny block of fluid hot press watercolor paper, also basically in postcard size, because I have never used this brand before and I wanted to try it. And this I'm actually most excited about because I finally bought a palette. So we have that lid. Let me get that out. Oh, that's bigger than I thought. Because since I bought some tubes, I wanted to make sure I had somewhere to put them. So this one holds 18, I think. And that way I can pick whatever colors I think were the best. And then I have a palette. Does this come out? It looks like it should come out. Yes, it does. For color mixing, and then I can just wipe it off. Color mixing is something that I want to spend more time learning, which is why I ordered the tubes, so that I can try to do better with color mixing. I'm not explaining this very well. I feel like the sets that I have right now don't necessarily work very well for mixing. Like the Cotman colors, I do like the colors, but it's missing some stuff that I feel is really necessary to end up with a nice palette. And I feel like once I fill those holes, this will be a lot nicer. But it's also like the shape of these is not necessarily very easy to work with, and there's just enough room around them so that as I'm getting the paint wet, a lot of paint ends up underneath the little blocks, which on the one hand holds them in there when it dries so that it kind of works like a glue, but it's also a waste of paint and it's very annoying to me. So we're gonna try this and see if I like it better, and try some tubes, but the tubes haven't come yet. So when those come, I guess I'll do a follow-up video. I do have a few tubes. I bought a couple colors of the Cotman watercolors when I was in Michael's the other day, because they were having like a sale. I guess because it's close to school season and they tend to do sales this time of year. But I only bought like 4 very random colors, and they are not necessarily the ones I want in here. So I'm gonna set this aside. And then finally, let's take a look at this. So this is 18 colors. And like I said, it's really heavy. And I've seen so many videos using this. I don't think it's necessarily light fast, so it might not work well if you're planning on doing finished pieces, but I wanted it for practicing. palette. Let's flip these out. Oh, there's a sticker on the back with the colors. I should hold on to that. It has all their names. Awesome, I didn't even realize they, their names on them? No. Doesn't look like it, but it'll be useful when I want to refill them. So we've got deep red, ochre, violet, ultramarine, Prussian blue, black, ponceau, P-O-N-C-E-A-U, earth yellow, I can barely read this one, medium yellow I think it says, acid blue, which in real life is like my favorite color, grass green, burnt umber. This one is dried out, so we can try reconstituting this one. I got a really good price on these, so I'm not too worried about it. Rose lemon. Oh man, it's hard to read because it's white writing on top of the colored background. It's lemon something. I can't read the second word. And then there's two different whites, which I definitely cannot read because again, it's white on a white background. But it looks like this one might be a slightly different tone, more gray or possibly translucent. I'm not sure. Jade green and pale green. All right, cool. Yeah, and it's too bad that one of them came dried out, but not the end of the world. Yeah, I think I see why it has a crack in it right here. That let air in. All right. People are saying that they just let theirs dry out and then they paint with them dry. I don't know how that'll work, but again, I've never worked with this before. So I am going to take all the covers off and swatch these out. I think that's more of a time-lapse thing though, so let me change the camera around. One moment. Alright, so it's not amazing, but it is a test of the gouache. And I do really like how velvety it dried. It feels really interesting. If you've only worked with watercolor and you've never worked with gouache, then you won't really be expecting this necessarily, but it does have like a really interesting matte texture to it that I like touching. Don't touch it too much though, because it does reactivate with water, and if you have any sort of liquids or oils on your hands, you can reactivate the paint. Spoken from experience. Anyway, this was also my first time using this brand of paper. The only other hot press paper I've ever used was like a little sample of the Stonehenge Aqua Press or something, hot press paper, like a little artist trading card size. And I do really like this paper. It seemed to dry a lot slower than the cold press paper I'm used to, but I like how smooth it is. This is a block, but it's only glued on two sides, so there could still be the potential for warping. I've never actually removed paper from a block, I understand how to do it, I've just never done it. So after I turn this off, I'll do it off camera so I don't embarrass myself. So yeah, that was really fun. I love this set. I love the colors. It makes me so happy. It's so bright. Now it's too heavy for me to bring with me anywhere, unfortunately, because it's just massive. But I do think I'm gonna try to keep up with it. I wanna, you know, spray it with water every now and then to keep it wet and usable, and scoop out the colors with a palette knife so I don't contaminate them as much. And the umber did reconstitute after being left with water overnight, so that's good to know. I'm actually gonna add just a little bit more water to that because it looks not as wet as the other ones, but still relatively wet. And it's good to have a pipette on hand. Sometimes when I'm trying to use my watercolor palette and I don't want all the colors activated, just one or two, I'll just drip just a couple. Oh no, I got some on there. I'll drip water just on the specific area that I want it. Although it is good to keep a spray bottle on hand as well, especially for this palette. From what I understand, most people that use the Gouache palettes spray them down with water as they're using them and keeping them open so that they can keep the colors from drying out. I love the color of the box, but I have a really hard time getting it closed properly, which makes me nervous about it drying out because it doesn't get a good seal. So there is that to consider. I noticed that one of the other sets is going on sale soon. Let's see, is that now? I had a timer on it. Starts in 11 minutes. So if that's a decent price, I might buy that. And then maybe that case will be a little bit better. We'll see. So yeah, that's about it for this video. I will have probably 2 follow-up videos, maybe more. So the next video we will hopefully have my Van Gogh travel palette so we can figure out what colors work best in a travel palette for me, because I do want to have one little travel palette to bring with me, and then I want one larger palette that I'll refill with tubes that will stay here. So probably, well, I don't know yet. I don't know if I want to use this palette. Probably not. I have another one coming that you can like click the pans in. So we'll see. So that's 2 more videos, one about travel palettes and one about tubes. So when the tubes come, we'll test those out as well. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.